Welcome everyone to something that I haven't done in a long time. Usually when I do the review, full review, not first impressions or early reviews, I tend to do a video where I respond to comments that are on that review video. Reason is that I always like to learn things from people, and that's how I got to this point, by starting the reviews and then reading all the comments and then trying to understand all the information provided. Thankfully this channel attracts people that can really think and that can usually dissect things nicely. This also helped me with builds, guides and so on, so it really helped to grow the channel and I'm really appreciative of that. So this is not some kind of a drama thing that I'm trying to do here, no, it's far from it. I just like to read these things and see what people have said. I read most of the comments and then just respond in this manner. Another reason is that I spent a lot of time typing in that the worst enemy design video for Khazan, the First Berserker. That was part of Ramblings of a Madman series, and I also spent a lot of time with Rise of the Ronin people, so I just don't want to do it anymore. It took a lot out of me to do that, especially to control myself in that environment, because you're dealing mostly with people that have, mostly, not all, mostly that just don't have the capability to understand a lot of the things that are being said and just can't comprehend the differences between enemy designs, skills and so on. And also there's also good people that are just cancer on the internet overall, and that's about it. But there are some people that actually can talk and know how to put some points forward, and those are the ones that interest me the most, those types of comments. And they can disagree, that's all fine, I like that, because that pushes me forward to think if maybe I'm wrong. I always go by that starting point that I could be wrong. But rarely someone, at least lately, puts that in some kind of a text thing in the comments where they can dismantle my arguments. I haven't seen that yet in this, maybe in this review video from the comments that I read, but we'll see how it goes. I'm interested to see how what people have said, and I'm gonna also respond to every comment through this video, and then I'm gonna be done. I'm not gonna respond anymore to any more comments. It's just I don't have the will anymore, and the time, especially the time it takes for me to try to engage with people that agree, that disagree, doesn't matter. They just want to start some kind of a discussion. It's just time. I've spent a lot of it. I spent a lot of time doing that, and there's just no way I'm gonna do that anymore. At least, no, I will do that, but not now, not anymore at this point. Later for some new game, yeah, definitely. So anyway, let's get started. Appreciate the support, you guys are fantastic most of the time. This review sits at about 87% like to dislike ratio, so people generally understand what I'm saying. So anyway, I've quitted the game, couldn't finish it. Neo 2 is far better, boring game. Alright, these are all subjective things, boring game. Neo 2 is far better. Far better is a stretch. Better, yeah, far better. I don't know. The spear combat is fantastic, I agree. I'm in New Game Plus now, and I have no desire to go back to dual weapons or great sword. Yeah, there's a lot of discrepancy in how these weapons play. These weapons play really well, in my opinion. I don't know about the greatsword, but I know about spear and the dual wield, which were my two weapons, and they really play well. Very different. Spear is a little bit easier because of the range and because of that phantom weave that you can do, which makes it much easier to counter enemies and to stay offensive. Dual weapons doesn't have such a great option. Dual weapons has that flash cutter and has that other thing where he does some kind of a slash with two weapons that can counter enemy attacks, or actually go through the enemy attacks. But that's not that easy to pull off, because you gotta learn the timings of the boss, and not to get stuck in a combo as well, because it can be very difficult to use those types of things. But anyway, both weapons I enjoyed playing. See, this is really interesting to me. I played my first playthrough and as a spear user, and for New Game Plus I went for the all wheel, that I will not go back to spear now. Okay, great review. Personally, I give the game a 4 out of 10. I think 4 out of 10 is too low, because the majority of the time you are going through a level. The level designs and placements of enemies suck so much that it made playing the game feel like a chore. I agree with that, definitely. The level design and going through the missions is the weaker part of the game, but I think that the things that this game does well doesn't merit a 4 out of 10. But as I said, to me, realistic score for this game is 5 to 7. That's it. Anything above it, we are going into the extreme subjective territory. But to each their own. Every score is subjective. What I'm trying to do with the reviews is objectively analyze what is going on. What I like, what I dislike, what I enjoy, what I don't enjoy. Why should you care? That's not any base for anything. What I would like to, at least I think like that. When I watch a review, I don't watch reviews, but when I do watch a review, I would like someone to analyze it for me. What the hell am I playing? Should I invest my time into that? Should I invest money, even more important, into that? And that's what I would like. That's why I don't cater to viewers in my reviews. I don't care what people like, or what they don't like, or what they hate or hype. What does that matter? And that's why I never say if something is worth it to you, or if you're going to like or dislike the game. Those are extreme subjective things. Because what the game is worth to you, I don't know that. How can I know that? How can I know how you think about these things? How much money you got? How much are you willing to spend? What do you think is the more important thing in games? And so on. I will never get good, alright, and I don't like these kinds of games. It's a shame we got so many of these. Well, actually we don't have so many of these. We don't. These types of games, not that many are there. Just lately there's been some like Wolong, but Wolong is far better game than this one. I get everything Dude is saying, but for me this is a game of the year. I love this game. See, this is a fair comment. He gets what I'm saying, he understands that the game has positives, negatives and so on, but it's his or hers, days, whatever, fuck English. Game of the year, why not? That's all fine. The way people suck this game off is insane to me. Well, that happens with most games, especially action games. When action games come out, people invest their time, and they kinda, it's one of those genres where they attach their identity to the game the easiest from any other game, from what I've seen. Maybe Call of Duty 2, Fortnite, things like that, which are all skill-based games, to be honest. You can laugh at that, but they really are. This game is so skill-based, not that much, but it is. It does need. You are required to have some skill to beat this game. Just because you don't like fast-paced games and like that slow roll Dark Souls combat and hate a challenge like this game doesn't mean start hating. First of all, he didn't hate the game. See, this is a very emotional response, emotional comment, and the subjective one. Just because you don't like fast-paced game, this person never said that. Sorry, I constantly say he, but that's just a normal thing if you're not a native English speaker. It is what it is. And like that slow roll, they also didn't say that. And hate the challenge like this game. There's a lot to not like about how this game presented its challenge, but there are other comments where I will also go into that. I probably beat this game faster than you did. I also never said I hated the game, but you must be good at jumping to wrong conclusions. Yeah, that's a fair point. Name me one game besides Sekiro you believe has better combat than this. Well, see, that's a wrong question to ask, because there's many aspects to combat. Neo, for example, has better bosses than this, and Neo has, or at least on this level, I would say better, a little bit. Neo 2 specifically. So, Sekiro, Neo, even though Neo has also some very cheap things, but it is what it is. Is a complex system always better than a simple one? Good point. Also, the comment was talking about Game of the Year. Is a good combat system the only thing that matters for something to be Game of the Year? A very good point as well. To some people it is, which is fair enough. But then if those people go on the online and then claim and then attack the reviewers and attack other people for not being their GOTY or for not praising, then they are automatically in the wrong. Because if you only value one aspect of a game, then I don't know what to tell you. Then your game where you value only one aspect and ignore the rest of it, it's simply not a valuable system that you can share across other platforms and think that your opinion should be valid, because it's invalid at the start. It can be your game of the year, no problem. But if you only value one thing or two things when the game has many aspects to it, and other aspects are mediocre or bad, it just can't be Game of the Year because there are much better games out there by default. Well, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, by far a better game than this, but it's a very different game. I didn't play many games this year, but I played Aliens Dark Descent, which is from the last year, which is also overall better game than this. So yeah, you just didn't admit that it lacks in so many areas because you know it's true. I'm pretty sure there have been some games released in 2025 that do a better job in those areas. Once again, I like playing Khazan, but ultimately it's really forgettable. Pretty much good assessment. I also liked, I didn't dislike or like playing Khazan. Neither one or the other. I just played it. It never really invoked any emotions from me, except frustration sometimes, and that cool factor, oh shit, look what I'm doing, right? When you string some moves together. But it didn't affect my judgment of the game. Every game has faults, true. Lost Soul Aside. Oh yeah, we need to check that game. I might check Lost Soul Aside as well. Thanks for notifying. Thanks for putting that name in the comment section. There are a lot of games coming out. I usually get my information from Discord, from my Discord, and from people in the comment section about new games. I really don't watch news. I'm completely out of gaming loop, by the way, people. I'm like in a cave. It's a specific thing that I want to be. It's not a good thing sometimes. That's why also when I'll do guides and things, I could do better guides. For example, my builds for this game aren't particularly great because I haven't really checked out any posts or anyone else to see what they are doing. Maybe you know how to improve them and so on. Sometimes you need that if you don't go too deep. I didn't go too deep for these builds. I just went with something that works easily. That's about it. This game can be played in a simple way. Doesn't have to be overcomplicated, but to each their own. So the thing is, when you put games in a genre, or at least when you see what the games are focusing on. Witcher is a different game than this one, of course. It's a story-based game. It has an open world with unique quests and so on. It's a handcrafted game. It's one of the best games that ever released, right? Many people will agree with that. Some won't. Fine, doesn't matter. But it's a high-quality game. We can all agree on that. In that game, a lot of things matter more than in Khazan. In Khazan, they're trying to tell a story. Therefore, story matters. But does it matter? Will it affect the gameplay? Will it affect your enjoyment of the game? It won't. It won't. But you still have to go through the story sections. There aren't many of the sections, which is one of the reasons why story is never drags player in. Even if it tries to do, it does it briefly, but then player gets out of it immediately. Which one of the problems is the mission-based structure, that where rarely any game can really tell a story through. So you need to weigh what is more important in games. In this game, gameplay is by far more important. And gameplay most of the time is mediocre because of the enemy design. We are going through the level, most time mediocre. You're fighting bosses. Well, bosses are by far the best thing about this game. So and they still have a lot of issues. So even if by those standards you go, you still are dealing with mediocre to decent to maybe good game overall, even if you ignore all the other aspects. So anyway, let's move on. There's gonna be a lot more talk. I like to jibber jabber, as you've seen. I'll get good. Yeah, that's a mate from Discord. I will continue the game one day a bit hard when you go against bosses like with 1,000 times more health than you deal damage. So like in all Souls games, you sit questioning whether your gear is outdated or your stats are wrong. I see you pulled up my memory versus learning patterns debate, and for those reading it is true. It's not a case of the boss did this attack, so the next attack should be this. Or at 50% health, the boss goes off to the side and to do some powerful leap. It's just muscle memory. You don't know what attack is actually coming. All you have is the muscle memory reflex to block, dodge on a connection. Yeah, that's what this game is. That's why after a couple of tries, people that know this game are going to beat most bosses after a couple of tries. You're going to get a couple of those timings down, and that's it. That's all it takes. At least that was the case with me. I struggled against stone bosses, as I said in the review. No shame about that. First Viper pre-nerf. That was the second boss they introduced into the game. 2 boss health bar with insane health pool, and you couldn't even build up until that any sort of a build that would be that would negate or increase damage a little bit, so that you would be able to survive longer, or that you would be able to dish out more damage. So it was a really bad positioning of a boss, of a Viper boss. Viper would be more of a mid to late game boss. The question you asked, that's about the atmosphere. Because I didn't know how to answer that one. I think it may be because it looks like Dark Souls clone when it comes to the world build, but the characters are like stylized anime, like it's Persona 5 game. So in the background, the mind has issues. It is confused and can't get fully into the one or the other. Could be. Not a bad explanation. I think it's just the exaggerated smokiness of every scene. Could be too. Shit, I don't know. Could be. The boss HP pool being unnecessarily high does resonate with my opinion after playing against the Yeti in the demo. I gave up on the demo due to the boss fight alone. It felt like a complete chore, and the most basic attack still dealt high damage. It doesn't feel like it's trying to be fair in any way. After the Yeti in the demo, I simply gave up on the demo and my hype for the game died. Well, that's fair enough. Yeah, so many devs shoot themselves in the foot making Souls-likes because they don't understand what makes them good. Well, technically this isn't a Souls-like. This is partially Souls-like. Neo also isn't a Souls-like game. Neo is more of a action RPG looter game than a Souls-like. Neo, same like this game, same like Neo has the identity issue, and it's and both games actually emphasize the point of the identity issue because they try to be both, but they fail at least at Souls aspect. They fail a lot. They are just not very good Souls games. But when it comes to action RPGs, they're quite good. In some, when you discount the story and the world building and all that stuff, you know, that Souls-like are famous for lore. They aren't making them because they love Dark Souls 3, they're making them as cash grabs now, trying to cash in on the hype from Elden Ring. They think difficulty is success, and so the more difficult they make the game, the more people will like it, and they don't understand why the difficulty is there to begin with. Difficulty is a byproduct of the story and world, and it's never unfair mechanics, it's learning curves to master and overcome. Yeah, fair point. I can agree with some of the things. But I don't think this is a cash grab game. Not at all. Khazan has a place to stand on its own amongst the action RPGs because of the style and because how they did the player combat system, which really is close to Neo in a lot of ways, but it isn't also. It stands on its own. I would say that they did what they could in translating a mobile game into a AAA Souls-like. This isn't a AAA, this can't be called a AAA game. This is a AA game, I think. But alright, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they can redeem themselves doing some sort of expansion. Maybe, but there are... I don't know. Depends in which... That's why I said that good people are a problem. They can affect where this studio goes from here on out. There are definitely issues with bosses. HP might be one of those issues, but moveset bloatness is the most egregious. What the player can do is very strong, fun, and with lots of options. Absolutely agree with that. But the way to deal with bosses is to kill them before they can do anything instead of learning how to deal with their moves. Not really. It's a very aggressive or die kind of a game. Yeah, true. True that is. The last boss did the nuke mechanic only twice in my nearly 40 attempts before I managed to kill him. Only twice, because its moveset is so bloated and because the rest of the time I either died before or managed to finish that phase so fast he barely did anything. I'm okay with moveset bloat. I like the moveset bloat. It's how they utilize it. It's part of the problem in this game, how they utilize it, and and if those are in the confines of the rule set that the player is in. And this game fails at both of those aspects because the movesets are great. There's a lot, well, not every move, but a lot of the moves are really good, and they mix them up differently. You really don't know what's coming. Usually you do. At some parts you do, especially at the beginning, but at the beginning of the fight, but that ends, and then what then? Then you really don't know what's coming, which is a good thing. But they do spam when they start doing a combo, and then they try to spam some things in the middle of the combo, or when they do one combo, then comes another typical stuff that goes after the combo and so on. They do like to spam those things. Okay. I like what the player can do a lot. I agree, it's the best part of this game and top amongst most Souls-likes. Yeah, but it feels like the devs didn't know how to deal with that amount of power given to the player when making enemies and had to make them cheap to try to make them difficult. Absolutely agree with that. So if you're not on top of the boss all the time, only barely ever stopping to defend against a couple of attacks, you're doing it wrong. True, they do emphasize that. It's limiting clearly in favor of aggressive players. It can be very disconnecting, like you're fighting a punching bag that could kill you in a breeze if you miss one button. Yeah, also the balance is atrocious. It depends on what build you're using, but overall speed is so much stronger. Yeah, it is stronger than dual wield, definitely. But there is one broken dual wield set that I haven't played with, but people have said that it's fantastic, so kind of a bloodthirsty fiend. I tried the dual wield a few times with different builds and it felt like I was playing hard mode compared to the spear. Ultimately, I would forgive boss encounters, some of them are amazing, yeah, some of them are really good, but what made me almost stop playing is the regular levels. They are boring as hell in almost every way. Yeah, see, this is a good comment, although I don't agree with the bloatness of the moves, that being a problem, but when there's so many timings, it could be a problem, because it is a muscle memory game. And you are true about the playstyle, but that's a problem, see? We are playing an action RPG. What do RPGs build a good basis for? Playstyles. Every RPG builds good basis for many playstyles. So if this game only wants you to play one way, that's a problem. Because then it didn't do a good job distributing the power between the playstyles, and it didn't do a good job overall with in the balancing department. So that's a minus for the game, not a plus. Man, that was hard. If I want to hyperanalyze every game, it will be 6, and Elden Ring will be even lower. Nah, I wouldn't say Elden Ring. I did a fair review on Elden Ring, and definitely not lower than this. Ben, no, if you want to hyperanalyze every game, it won't be a 6, because I didn't even hyperanalyze this game. I hyperanalyzed the bosses. Because people and enemies, because I specifically wanted to also get into that get good argument skill and bollocks like that. So I wanted to do that so that people can understand. If they choose to understand, good. If they don't and they can't, it's fine also. But the solid 8, it's a stretch. That to me is extremely subjective territory. Story is mid, combat is excellent, reliability is concerningly shit. Some enemy design is cheap for sure, bosses are great, status effects were awful. Status effects, yeah, not the greatest. I think this game was close to Sekiro, same grind for bullshit that is needed to defeat bosses. Nah, not close to Sekiro. Not even close. Confetti to beat Headless boss, for example. Also some upgrades are missable without guide from YouTube, that's also bullshit. I still think Sekiro is an excellent game, and even if I died 700 plus times on Sword Saint, mate, we all did. We all remember that, we all have PTSD from Sword Saint. Yeah, but solid 8 no. Best, thank you mate, appreciate it. I'm going through with the dual wields and looking forward to going through New Game Plus with the spear. I hear Neo a lot, but I'll have to go back to it. I really hated the combat, it was too random. One time you combo an enemy to death, next day that same enemy has mad poison, they kill me. Yeah, that's the problem in Khazan. Am I doing something wrong because I really want to like it because I love Souls and loot games? Really enjoying this game so far. I don't know if he's talking about Neo or what. Khazan has the universal perfect block and perfect dodge, similar to Wolong. Neo doesn't, so it is harder to play in a way. Neo has a billion situational tools for varying effectiveness. The games are different in that regard. That's a good comment. This was the review I've been waiting for. Thank you, hard enemies and review coverage of the game, strangely enough. Yeah, I don't follow what people cover, so can't really comment on that. Why use footage from a late game area in the opening of the video? Well, because who knows that hasn't played the game, but it's a late game area and it's a level, so who gives a crap really? And if you play through the game, you already know it. You already know that area. I loved the game until after the Dark Elf boss. After that the levels became a chore and just started to annoy me. Also feel the game is too long, and now I just want to finish it quickly because I'm stubborn. And Space Marine 2, Baldur's Gate 3 and KC2 drops big updates on the 15th. Yeah, far better games than this one. Hope you will quick review KCD2 hardcore mode. I might actually. I don't know when it comes out, but I might. I agree on all points, thank you. Game is good, but only good. Mediocre level design and constant boss recycling brings the rest down. For me, game lacks atmosphere because the story, characters, lore are not a part of the experience. They're just there because they're expected to be there, to justify the action and nothing more. Good point, I agree with that. Boss recycling, that's an interesting thing, because there are recycled bosses in side missions, which I don't have a problem with, because the side missions are not that important in a way, right? But what is an interesting point, that they try to recycle a lot of the bosses, main story bosses. When you talk about Troka, Reese, last one, and I won't spoil here. Was that another one similar? They're all quite similar bosses in a way. Not saying same, but they do use similar mechanics. It's very similar trying to battle them. Princess Elena. Yeah, there's not really any environmental storytelling beyond the obvious. There are no item descriptions. There is no. I'm okay with no item description. That's not a big part of. But alright. There is no story behind any of the enemies. Yeah, the NPCs in the hub just stick to the obvious and don't enlarge on the world or even themselves. True. That's why I said that characters are superficial in this game. Also, the art style is very generic, edgy anime, and it all feels samey regardless of the level or setting. It does feel same, it never really changes, like, oh shit, look at this location, look at that location, like for example Elden Ring did have, or any of the other games where you actually go to the new location and the new location is wow, holy shit, look at that. That part from Elden Ring, I forgot the name, where you fight the dragon. Jesus Christ, that was such a fantastic build-up, what they did with that thing. The amount of unjustified glazing this game has got for some creators is baffling. Yeah, I don't follow really people, I don't watch anyone. I don't care what other people are saying, so... What gameplay is what makes this game truly shine, true, but not to the level that people think. What about also the weapons and their locked B plus C scaling regardless of the level and whatnot? All weapons feel the same. In terms of stats. Okay, in terms of stats they do. Garbage review. Oh, look, cute. He put... these are empty comments. These comments mean nothing. Basically, what I mean by that is if we delete all the comments... ever... would anyone feel bad for this comment being deleted? Not that I delete comments, I'm just saying in general if there was some kind of an outage and something happens. But look, I'll give you a thumbs up, you try to like your comment, it's all good, mate. Cheap comment that means nothing, it's empty, doesn't say anything. If this review was, if this comment was here or it wasn't here, it would be the same effect. So, I mean... just because he did not profess his undying love for the game does not make it a garbage review. He at least qualified his opinions with reasons as to why he had those opinions. I'm not sure what you're looking for in reviews other than an echo chamber in your case. That's a good point. A lot of people won't feel good reviews. You are on the wrong channel. If you won't feel good reviews, as I said, I don't cater to viewers. I would consider it a flawed gem. Same. I think it stands out, as I said, but... The combat system is great, fighting regular enemies, but falls a bit apart when it comes to bosses, similar to Neo. Combat system actually... fighting regular enemies. I just don't hope that... I hope that you haven't put elite enemies into regular enemies, because elite enemies are garbage. Little garbage, trash design that is just as cheap as it possibly can be. But alright, falls a bit apart when it comes. Well, it shines actually against the bosses, but the player, because against the bosses you can do most of the things and chain things together in a way that you can't against the normal enemies. So I disagree there. But there are other problems that I'm gonna also mention, because there's some comments that I've read already that we can go into more depth about some of the things. Fuck yes, call out this gear, good luck is out and keep doing it. These people are a cancer to gaming. I completely agree with that. Well, there's a thing. People think that just because they can leave a comment that they are entitled to be treated. You are going to be treated the same way. Well, actually, I'm not treating you the same way as you are treating the other people in the comment section, because I'm restraining myself. But I have enough intelligence to point out how a lot of those people don't really know what they're saying, and that is enough for me. I can try to educate them, to try to see what from where I'm coming from, where other people are coming from. That's all I can do. Whether you accept it or not, Whether they accept it or not, it's on them, and that's all I can do. But there are some people, some good people, that actually, one comment, I think it's a newer comment, that's going to be very interesting to dissect. I like those types of comments. They bring out the best in me. Or maybe make me learn things. That's good. Haven't played it, but I play and love Souls games for more than just the combat. The atmosphere, the art design, level design, and weapon and armor variety, as well as the multiplayer aspects, really drew me in and are factors at least as important to me as combat mechanics. I actually don't know if this game has multiplayer because I don't play multiplayer games. I don't play multiplayer in anything, so I really don't know if that is the case. But if you're looking for the atmosphere, art design, level design, weapon and armor, well, weapon and armor variety, there's not much weapon variety, but there is skill variety. So you can really combine a lot of skills differently, so there is variety. Armor variety, there's a lot. And those are really good sets. Atmosphere, none. Art design, mixed bag. Great character design details in terms of Khazan being really well designed and bosses, but other than that, not much there. I'm not keen on the cell shading for this type of a game. In my opinion, games like the First Berserker Khazan, which seem to aim for a dark fantasy setting, need to establish an oppressive mood and portray strong feelings of despair and decay. Yeah, it would really work with this type of lore that they tried to go with. I find it difficult to achieve that atmosphere with typically vibrant colors and clean cel-shaded lines. For me, it clashes with the grim tone I expect and doesn't work at all. Yeah, that's the problem why the game really doesn't have any sort of atmosphere. This might be a good, also one of the better explanations to why the game has no atmosphere. Get good, Mike. I know, Mike. I agree with a lot of said here that might do a new playthrough of Neo 2 to compare both games. I don't think I've ever finished Neo 2. I finished Neo 1 but just barely. Got to the point where they increased difficulty but just throwing more bosses into a small room may have just been the optional levels that did that, but I tend to be a completionist to try to brute force through them. Wind up searching online how to get past these types of fights and answer just respect to magic and use this spell to CC one while burning down the other. Sure, it just felt like lazy boss fight design. Here at least looks like they tried to make each boss encounter interesting, but I ran into a situation where it felt you definitely had to change things up if you didn't want to be there all week. I'm thinking of the girl boss with the shield. She was such a slog. Yeah, too much health and mobility. She just kept that stupid shield up non-stop with rare openings to do damage or even attacking that allow you to parry and deal stamina damage to her, which is one of the problems of the tracking system in this game. Otherwise, if she, considering she's got the shield, she should have less mobility and she should have less tracking on her attacks, which would then make us be able to get to her back more. Now, there are some skills that can get us to her back easily, but then you really have to use those skills. That means that you need to change your playstyle. And I don't like when you need to change the playstyle to be effective against bosses. Now, I'm not saying builds, I'm saying playstyles. Because those type get to the back playstyles, it would also sometimes in this game mean change the build. Why? Because there's also frontal things with some of the special effects and armor set bonuses, which would be negated then by focusing going from the rear. But then again, it's now a debate if what would be, what wouldn't be. I don't know. Tracking would be definitely better reduced, and since the fight could go on for 20 plus minutes, you're just bound to make a mistake. And then I see a video where they suggested armor that gives 90% armor pacing, so you could actually directly damage her, making the fight more manageable. Yeah, that's good. Then I see most other fights have been fine, but very annoying when they run off and heal and or can change recharge all this stamina in a matter of seconds, even when you are wailing on them. Super frustrating. See, so you would have to respect, because that's a special effect on gear where you could do the piercing damage. But then again, that's why the effect is there. So we go to the point where why am I being punished for not running a certain playstyle? And that's another debate that we can have about these types of games. I don't have an answer for that. I really don't. Because you can go plus and minuses in both ways. Why that's a good thing? Because that's an RPG thing to do things. But even in RPGs, D&D, when you play a certain character, you play a certain character. There's no respecting. There is sometimes, but usually there isn't. You play for longer periods of time with that particular playstyle because there's no option to respect. So it might be a balancing thing, but then again, I don't know. It could be a lot of things. I played only the demo Thanks, Christopher. I played only the demo, but the Blade Phantom boss already showcased all the issues which you mentioned. The movement, animation, responsiveness had a great feel, but after Lies of P, I don't want to play games where you can only chip away the boss's health bar while he can kill you in a couple of hits. Strange, because in original Dark Souls bosses didn't have that high HP pool. I don't know when this becomes standard, but I'm not a fan of it. Yeah, rarely these types of games have bosses with large health pools. They do, some of the bosses have, for example, Nameless King, which is really great boss fight, but the bastard did have a large health pool. So, I don't know. I don't know about that. It depends on how the fight plays out. If you add large health pool on top of large damage, then it's cheap fight. Period. There's no debate about it or argument around it. There simply isn't. Because you're going to play for a longer periods of time, and you're going to have to repeat the fight if you fail just once or twice, because you're gonna get stuck in a combo or something like that, and that's never a good thing. Why would that be a good thing? We all make mistakes. Even the good people, they also make mistakes and they die. So it's important how you die and why you die. I don't care about the story. The game was good, not AAA, but good, not AAA. AAA should never be a factor for quality, mate. It doesn't matter if it's indie, AA or AAA. You make it sound like that it's needed for a good game. It's not. I make it sound like AAA is needed for a good game. You misunderstood the review then. It's not Elden Ring characters have all the... zero charisma. It's not for me to create nice to fish story. I don't care. No. Elden Ring characters don't have zero charisma. Not even close. When it comes to the jars, I just equip... some of them do, but mainly they don't. When it comes to the jars, I just equip all special lamp all the time, which makes the controller vibrate whenever you're near, and if you're searching every side part, you will find it pretty easily, at least most of them that is. Yeah, but it's still something that is done on the side, where you really gotta pay attention to the sound when you're constantly fighting as well. You know, in this game you're constantly fighting, so it's not a good collectible when you need to be paying attention to jars in the level. But okay, you can negate that with a special lamp, but that lamp needs to be bought, and that money can be invested better elsewhere. There's a heavy tone in jingly, true, but that can also be obscured by many other things while playing the game and going to the level. While I agree this game is far from being great, I have been having a ton of fun of playing it, and in the end that's what games are all about for me. Whether or not level design or other actions top tier isn't important to me. I'm always enjoying myself and having fun, which of course is extremely subjective. Yeah, that's a fair point. Can't add anything to that. I think it is less skill versus memory, but rather memory plus skill. Yeah, that's what I said. It's a combination of muscle memory plus skill. Memory is needed to know when you can use your skill to inflection the most health and stamina damage as possible, while also getting ready to use our block skillfully in order to bring their stamina down as fast as possible. While I do agree that some of the bosses have too much health, others seem fine if you're using memory and skill together in order to be consistently aggressive. The fights end pretty quickly. Yeah, but again, you are then saying that this game, you're pointing out that this game is actually balanced around simply one playstyle, which is not a good thing for an action RPG. The game seems fantastic build quality wise, and 10 years ago I would have loved it, but since then I have played the Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, Elden Ring, Black Myth, Lies of P, and others. I'm playing this, dying, and oh wait, one of the things I just realized, I've mistaken Wolong with Wukong. Before I said that Wolong is much better than this, I meant Wukong as a whole game is much better than this. My bad on that. I'm playing this, dying at boss and thinking, do I really want to do this 30 times? With it probably getting harder later on to progress. Actually, it doesn't get harder later on, just some bosses. To progress a fairly after the second region is probably the most unfair one. To progress a fairly mediocre narrative in a boring setting, and as you said, the level design is nothing special. Do I hate this game? Not at all, just nothing special. Well, hating, liking is subjective. The entire time playing Khazan, I couldn't stop thinking how much better this game would be without stamina. Just really let the player cut loose with unrelenting aggression. Well, that's an option. It would be interesting to see how that plays out. Then it would be pure aggression from both sides. Would the result be any different is the question. It would. Now I'm trying to picture that in my mind right now, how the fights would play out. Yeah, so you just want a super easy game with no challenge. Got it. Yeah, this guy, this person also, I'm gonna have special things to say about some of the people here. But yeah, this person goes completely in one direction and just has the capability thinking of a gnat just looking like this all the time. No, I want a fast-paced action game similar to Ninja Gaiden with Souls-like combat. Sekiro didn't have stamina. Challenging and fun game. Mong take. Lots of great games without stamina. Stamina and weight limits need to go. Well, no. There are games that have weights and stamina for a reason, and then there are games that aren't. Both games depend in the context of their own rule sets and how they work. We can't really separate. We can't really say these ones are good because they have stamina, these ones aren't because they don't have it. It's just different type. Brainly, it's like you are a dime a dozen. Imagine being dense enough to think stamina is required to make a challenging action game. Yeah, that makes no sense. I agree with this comment. Scrubs like you wouldn't hack it in Ninja Gaiden Black, let alone finish a single stage in classic Castlevania. Saying there should... Oh yeah, this guy is gonna have a proper section too. Saying there shouldn't be a stamina shows how little you guys understand this combat system, I'm afraid. Similar to OP crying about artificial difficulty, which is the phrase people who can't adapt to a game system immediately go to when trying to blame the game rather than their own shortcomings. This seems to be the video comment section where all the people who couldn't hack it have congregated to bash on what is being universally praised as an amazing game. But I'm very glad this is a tiny minority. Mate, let me tell you that in this video, tiny minority are the good people, or the people that don't understand really how to actually analyze the game, you know, or how to at least think about the game. But you have another comment here that I'm going to spend some time more dissecting, so I don't repeat myself. Great review, I love this game, but there are concerns that were already covered by you. This game gave the same feeling I had with Sekiro. So satisfying combat. However, Sekiro never gave me the feeling of unfairness, and this game does. As much as I love the final boss, I hate his first phase. Even the fight against Ishin is faster in his 4 phases than the first phase of this one. Yeah, unless you stun lock him, which is what these good people are telling you. They have one specific thing that they all say to people, from what I've read in the comment section, that they say to other people, to me, you gotta stun lock the bosses. But if you go by that point, how bad are the rule sets of combat if you can stun lock a boss? It's a boss, it's not a normal enemy. And if you can stun lock 80% of the health bar of one boss, which people are saying here, I never even wanted to play like that because I've used it a couple of times and just felt cheap as heck and tedious, not to mention tedious. Light, heavy, ability, light, heavy, ability, light, heavy, light, heavy, light, heavy to get some skills until I run out of stamina, ability, 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 red attack, burst attack, whatever the name is. That to you is high level. They're just spamming the same thing that the boss does. A lot of the times, not most of the time. It's the feel for me, to be honest. Every hit has weight to it, even though it's high paced. You can do very high damage to bosses if you know how to chain and stun them and figure out what parry counter time to make them stagger into long combat. The biggest dopamine for me was when I took out the third of a boss health just because I kept the chain going out and having good stamina management. It's very addictive. Once you learn how to chain combo bosses, you understand the health pool of the bosses. True, but again, we are going into the same thing that I just said. Stun locking the bosses, taking out insane amount of health bars. That to me is not a good design. That's actually a problematic design because of the bad poise system. Simple as. I understand what you can do. Don't worry. I've done it in the video against Scalpel, and I just didn't want to do it in many others because I also like to play with bosses. I like to see what the bosses can do. I actually like to die against bosses a lot of times because I not run around, but provoke them in a different ways to see how they would react, how their tracking works. What type of a move they will perform if I do this. I really like to do these things because it gives me great insight in how the bosses operate. I already knew everything I needed to know with the first 40 seconds of your gameplay. Being a contrarian to feel you didn't know damn thing from first seconds of the gameplay, so don't pretend, mate. Being a contrarian to feel like an individual is one thing, but make sure you're not a novice at the game before you voice your grievances. Novice, okay? Never said this in my life, but conformity is all too tempting here. Get good, bro. Stick with From Software games as well. Miyazaki Psycho fans can't actually adjust to a game with any mechanical depth. See, I've played Neo, I've played Surge, I've played pretty much everything and covered it on the channel, so I don't know what to tell you, mate. I got good. I didn't get amazing like you did probably, right? Dismissed realist. Yeah, you dismissed the realism, alright. The combat and bosses are great, the levels between them. Okay. The jarring jars are very clearly marked by deep tone and jingling. You certainly don't have to break every jar. No, you don't. Of course you don't. It was an exaggeration of my point, but I wasn't really paying attention to jars, right? That's the thing. I agree with all your negatives, but I still rate the game an 8 or 8 out of 5. The combat, too much. The combat and skill system is just that fun for me. I hope the studio makes more. I also hope they make more, but they actually go for a little bit more. About the lack of atmosphere, perhaps is the monotonous color palette for everything. For some bizarre reason, everything looks foggy and desaturated with single dominating color on top of the ever-present gray. The light blue area, the red area, the pink area, the brown area, more colors in the world would make it more appealing, at least for me. Could be, but a lot of people did say smoking colors, something like that, which I guess it's kind of connected to the monotonous color palette that you said. All I hear, there's the shadow. All I hear is he wants the game to be way easier and seems to want the game to play itself. Yeah, this is what you got out of it, because I want the game to be tougher, actually, to be more difficult. But I want it to be more difficult while in the confines of the rule set, which means fair difficulty, but difficult. That difficulty would be something that good people wouldn't be able to handle, because they are used to using memory and pattern recognition in order to do their thing against the bosses, and because it looks cool, same like this person here described. I'm not calling him good, don't worry, this is a fair comment. And I get the dopamine. That's exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly what I mentioned in the review. People get dopamine when stunlocking the bosses and so on, but that's just dopamine. That just invokes emotion, dopamine, right? That's it. But when you actually dissect what is going on, why and how you got to that point, it's a very different story. So I don't want that. I don't want that such an easy method to defeat the boss. I want the boss fight to be a dance in confines of the rule set, which is very difficult to do. Rarely games can do that. And this game does anything but that. So yeah, I want the game to be tougher, not easier. But in the confines of the rule set. I think the game has a lot going for it, but the difficulty I found awful to the point where I wasn't having fun. I have beaten difficult games in my life, many of which aren't Souls games. There are far more difficult games than Souls games. So yeah, even this game or other games. I'm not insecure over my gaming ability. Yes, I beat the game, but after Maluka I was still sort of tired and was just going for a platinum trophy. I found Neo 2 better. I'm not an expert at that game. Yeah, Neo 2 is a better game. Not by much, but at least a little bit. It was made in the north in a labor camp. I don't know about that. But so Neo 2 still not dethroned in this? No. But that's just a Neo-esque genre. I don't know many games in that genre. Do you know? Because I don't. I know only Neo that does that, Volong, and what other game does that? Khazan, yeah, but finally an honest review. I've got the impression that most gaming reviewers on YouTube are afraid to mention artificial chip difficulty because they fear to be bullied by the Get Good Brigade. Yeah, me too, but look, they can try on this channel. I just subbed, I beat the game yesterday and I fully agree with your analysis here. Great game, so many disappointing things and you articulated them all pretty objectively. Thank you, mate. Yeah, well said. I like the boss fight, definitely good, but RPG elements and level design could have been better. Hopefully their next try is the one. Yeah, I also hope. I agree with you on some stuff. I think it's an amazing game. I've been having a lot of fun with it. My biggest issue is the levels have no depth or creativity to them. It just run past some enemies and occasional mini boss. Also, I feel like the element. Well, I haven't been running past enemies except when I've died and then had to run. Then I said, nah, I'm not doing it anymore. But that's to confirm the point that you have no depth or creativity or interest to go through them, through the enemies or through the stages. slowly. Because the regular enemy design is quite weak. Also, I feel like the elemental damage in this game is severely overpowered, and every time I fought a boss, it wasn't the boss I was fighting, it was their elemental prowess that I was fighting. That became very irritating for some reason. Get good, my ass. Play the game however you want. The game have an easy mode if you want to go play on easy, and enjoy the game. These guys with elitism up their ass don't know how community comes around, and instead of welcoming newcomers, they alienate them. Great review. Well, mate, fuck communities in the first place. I'm against communities overall. Ain't know what could have been about it. Shit's a banger. Nah. In some aspects, yeah, but in many not. I've been playing this game for a week. 95% of that is due to lag, bizarre controller issues on PlayStation 5. Did you get anything like that? Well, this is my response to that, but it's an interesting point. I haven't noticed that, but I did notice, well, this block not being as responsive. And then I thought, why? Because the block seems quite responsive, so what's the problem? But it seems like those delayed attacks that have instant attack finishing animations that create very weird hitboxes and timings. And that can pose a lot of problems. And that means that when you pull up the block and you think your block should be up, it's actually already down. Or it hasn't even gone up yet. It's a timing thing, but it creates such weird hitboxes and timings. Soul games don't have stories. I'm not gonna piece together a story like a puzzle. Alright, I'm having fun playing this game. I'm pretty sure you can tear apart every game if you wanted to. No, you can't. That's the thing. People think I tore apart this game. I just gave this game a lot of praise also. Anyway, I just don't agree with you on most points. That's okay. There's always the I hate the good game person to get clicks. Whenever did I say I hate Khazan? If you got from this review, after praising the player's combat, saying it's one of the best I've ever played, praising even the bosses except their parameter settings, and armor, how armor looks, aesthetics, yeah, mate, this sounds like truly fucking hate. I don't hate or love this game, I'm neutral actually. Alright, we get back to this guy. Oh, this is going to be good. Artificial difficulty is just the go-to phrase people use to try and blame the game rather than admitting it couldn't adapt to the game's systems. Telling about bloated HP is a proof positive, along with your gameplay that you're trying to play this game like other action RPGs and weren't able to play on its own terms. First of all, every action RPG plays in its own system, and every action RPG plays differently. So that's where you're automatically wrong. Also, the fact that you simply finishing the game as proof that it wasn't a skill issue shows how narrow and simple your mentality of a skill is. If you had adapted to the game systems, not a single boss's HP would have felt bloated, and all of this so-called artificial difficulty would have suddenly disappeared. So, you mean with the stunlock thing? Yeah, I didn't want to do that. I did it against some bosses, but I specifically didn't want to go through all of that because it created the cheapness from the player combat system. So, yeah. I understand it's always easier to just blame the game system because your ego can't handle the possibility that maybe it was you and your lack of comprehending mechanics, but that's only going to stop you from properly experiencing a game like Khazan. I'm very glad this game is getting universal praise again. Universal praise. My own incompetence. Well, if I can beat the game and beat the most bosses in a couple of tries, which isn't, and that's with me playing nonchalantly most of the time, and still going through the game, that doesn't sound like in being competent to me in confines of this system. And then that also means that this system is definitely catered to a one playstyle, which most of you are saying that it is, which I've also noticed. And that playstyle is a bad way of dealing with the boss fight. Because if you have a boss fight that plays so cheaply, after they've done so much work to create good movesets, and some bosses have mechanics, but I don't think you understand what mechanics and combat framework are. Those are two different things. Combat framework means recovery from the animations, means hyper armor, means hitboxes, means tracking. All of those things, all the parameters that I've said that are bad about this game are not the mechanics. Mechanic is when that Volvino drops the thing into the ground and you have to run. That's the mechanic of the boss fight. And there are some good mechanics. There are also hidden mechanics which are really good. But that's the thing about artificial difficulty. Artificial difficulty is a thing where you try to make the game more difficult outside of the rule set that the player is fighting in. And that's what this game does. I've explained in detail in the review why that is. I don't have an ego about these things. I don't care, mate. Do you think that your opinion on my capability of playing games means anything to me? No. I just called all of you out because you can't discern between the enemy design and between the player combat system. And what you said about the artificial, talking about the bloated HP, blah blah blah, to blame the game rather than admitting they couldn't adapt to the game systems. I actually praised the game's combat system from the player perspective. I criticized the enemy designs and combat parameters. So that's another thing that you don't understand. You see the difference there? So don't try to put it down to another skill. You can do insane things in most action RPGs. This is not a specific game from that standpoint. It's the same in every decent to good action RPG like this. You can do many things. You can create many different setups. You can create so many stuff that it's ridiculous. You can play, but a lot of them allow for different playstyles and are being punished for those different playstyles. In this game, you are being punished unless you go for the cheapness of stun locking the boss. So I could actually question your skill there. So you know how to play this game by stun locking the boss. Isn't that a cheap way to go through the difficulty, through the artificial difficulty of this game? Isn't that you are bringing down the actual difficulty of this game by you playing cheaply? See how that goes when I turn things around. So anyway, try to think a little bit about the mechanics, combat framework and things like that, and you'll see why the artificial difficulty is done outside of the confines of the rule set in which the player is. And player is in confines of a rule set all the time. Bosses are not. Because of all the things I mentioned in the review. They have very little consistency. Which is also about that stun lock thing that you said. Stun lock thing is not a guarantee unless you do that from the red attack, from counter attack, that is countering the red attack. Otherwise, you can stun lock the bosses through normal combos, but then they recover on their own time. There's no consistency in that, which creates hyper armor situations that they go with, and then counter attack your combo. Well, they don't counter attack, they just go through your combo. And there are many moves in this game. Some of the moves, for example, you have a good comparison is the Howling Blade and the Whirlwind. Whirlwind and Howling Blade are very different moves. Howling Blade is very good because it's fast. Whirlwind, you can get stuck easily. By the time that the boss recovers mid-Whirlwind and then just smacks you around with 2 hits. Good design. Artificial difficulty? Good design? No. Artificial difficulty? Yes. Definition of. Seems like it's not balanced around that well, right? Because that shouldn't happen. Since you can't predict when the boss is going to recover. And therefore you cannot complete some of the combos. And those combos shouldn't be punished. Why should they be punished if I went with simple Whirlwind combo after the quick attack, then Howling Blade combo? You just can't know that when the boss is going to recover, unless, of course, you go from that. What did I say? From that counter attack. That's a different thing. Also, very idiotically designed that you can do that to the boss. What's the point? Burst attack. I mean, sorry, not but counter attack, and then spam, spam, spam. It creates tedium, mate. That's tedious. Yeah, I know you can counter bosses. Everyone knows that. That plays this game. You just go attack, 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 use flash cutter or use phantom weave or whatever when they try to counter attack you, and then you attack through that. And then if you're lucky enough to perform quick enough attack from the counter, from your counter attempts, and that the enemy doesn't recover in the middle of that counter attempt and go through it with a hyper armor, you will get success. And that's what creates dopamine effect, and that's what creates a continuous damage done to the boss, and that's what makes people think that this game has fantastic boss design. In some ways it does. In parameter ways it does not. Alright, last comment. I agree with the complaints about story characters and side missions, but disagree about everything told about bosses. So-called insane health pools are given for the sake of not being destroyed by combos in 1 minute. And that just goes to show, goes to the point of which I made many times in this video. That is the point of this game catering to a certain playstyle. And being an action RPG. If it was Ninja Gaiden, that's not an RPG, sure. but this is not Ninja Gaiden or anything like that. If you wear even an OK set, you deal pretty good damage, and if you know how to do combos with your weapon, you're able to keep boss stun locked 80% of the fight with any weapon. True, you can, which is extremely cheap, and definitely part of the problematic poise system. Poise system also when you do the counter attack from the red attack, that's not a good thing when enemy gets stunned for so long after that. I would prefer, you remember burst counter attack from Neo, much better done than counter attack into red. Then counter attack to the red attack, because you couldn't just go from that into insane infinite combos. Game requires being good at both builds and combat, and the dumbest decision you can make is trying to play the game as normal Souls using only blocks, counters, and basic LMB, RMB attacks. Dumbest decision. As I said, it's an RPG. It's an action RPG. Devs gave us 6 skill slots for a reason, and they also gave us the option to use less than 6 skill slots for a reason. And boss fights in this game last 1.5 to 3 minutes, depending on the number of phases. Yeah, sure, 3 minutes. Last boss can be killed in 3 to 3.5 minutes, which is more than good for a 3-phase boss. Everything higher than that are problems the player brought upon themselves, and it's not even debatable. But it is debatable, because I just said to you, it's an action RPG. Action RPGs should never cater to only one playstyle. There isn't an action RPG that played like this that caters to only one playstyle. So, then don't make an action RPG. What's the point of sets and everything else? What's the point of having different options? Complaining about not being able to strafe attacks in a game that doesn't even meant for this kind of defensive strategy is like complaining about not having a combat system in a chess, which is also another thing that goes straight into what I've said. If you're trying to create an assembly line combat that can be only played in one way, you already failed in an action RPG. And the thing is, with all the moves that the player has at their disposal, there aren't many skills as in Neo, but there are many moves that allow for strafing to the right, strafing to the left, going to their backs. And you will get countered doing that by enemies going hyper armoring through your attacks and just hitting you with some weird hitbox if it's a long range weapon and so on. And they can counter that easily because of the atrocious poison hyper armor system. High damage is a thing only for very strong attacks. No, it's not. I've just showcased that. Such attacks are usually easy to avoid, or pairing them results in stunning a boss, or they simply have a big recovery time by themselves. Normal attacks don't do big damage. There's medium to high damage attacks in this game. The reason why some of the attacks in this game, in my situation, is because I wear strategist set always. It's a mandatory set, and it's all not a good thing, because mandatory sets are not a good thing in any action RPG. Even the light armor can freely tank 4 or 5 of those and not die. That's a lie. That's a blatant lie. Memory game more than a skill game? I said both. Welcome to freaking any game Souls on the planet. No. Almost any boss in the genre, aside from most harmless ones that have 2 to 4 attacks in the moveset, is a memory game. You're always supposed to spend 3. This is more a muscle memory game, not a memory game. I should have maybe said it's muscle memory. There's a difference. You're always supposed to spend 3 to 5 tries just to see the whole moveset of the boss. Putting this as a complete specifically one game is just strange to say the least. You're always supposed to spend 3 to 5 tries just to see the whole moveset of a boss, and putting this as a complete to specifically one game is just strange to say the least. No, the thing is, because you are discounting the thing that I said about timings. This game said a lot of timings, very specific timings, and that when you complement that with high health pulls and high damage output, which you said there isn't, but there is, it's clear that there is. Then you create a very artificial difficulty, because it's easy to make a mistake with so many timings, and learning the whole moveset of a boss just to be able to pull off a timing, then stun lock them. Does that really sound like a good design? Think about what you just said. Does that sound like a good thing? With the skill set, if you're skilled like I'm assuming you think you're skilled at this game, wouldn't you be possible with your skill set and your availability of and the availability of the abilities and the builds? If you're really good at this game, you should be able to go through the boss in one try. That's what makes Souls games far better than boss design than these ones, except Elden Ring. Why? Because there are bosses that you can beat easily in one try. Not because the boss is badly designed, but because you can utilize the skill set that you learned, that you are really good at, and if you're good at a game, you can really do that to bosses. In this game, there's no way you can do that. Why? Because it's all about remembering the timings, about the muscle memory. And then when you do that, the result of that is stun locking the boss, so that the boss can't do anything. I mean, how is that a good design? It's cheapness against cheapness. And that's also a problematic thing because it also makes the player's combat system appear worse. Because you're going into a slogfest, tedious move spam. Not to mention how many bosses have the same move spamming things like I've just showcased in the video. Situation like this can't be caused at any time you want. You should parry a strong attack or use a counter attack on the red one like you did. Only then the boss's poise will be broken. You will be able to combo him as long as you have stamina and spirit, as long as you don't screw up your combo. It's not a bad poise, it's a game mechanic. Yeah, it's a bad game mechanic, mate. And it's because of the poise. That's why I said the Neo's burst counter attack is far better designed because it allows for the combat to play itself afterwards, not to stun lock a boss. Also, you do realize that you counter yourself. First you complain that bosses can be free from the player's combo by sheer will and start using their moves, which is not true too. By the way, only a couple bosses have ability to get free from the player's combo chain. Most of them do not. Then what game have you been playing, mate? Because every boss can have a pretty random thing where they just go through the combo. They just recuperate and do the hyper armor thing. And then after a minute you start complaining about the very possibility that you can combat the bosses. How is that countering myself? I don't get how is that countering myself. Well, actually I explained it through your whole comment. Why that's cheap design in both ways. And how the system actually doesn't work as well as it could be. Because you're cheapening the combat with the stun locking and it's not part of skill. You learn the timing, you've chained a couple of skills together and that's it. That's what you did. And I think that's high level stuff. Come on, man. You literally, that's not high level. They just, as I said, it's more of a muscle memory and skill than skill. But muscle memory is far more important in a game like this than skill. And again, it doesn't negate what I've said about the enemy design. So, and neither have you. With this, what would you say? Wait, by the way, not only a couple of bosses have abilities to get free from the player's combo chain. You mean after the counter attack, into counter-attacking the red attack? That may be true. I don't know. That may be true, but a couple of bosses do have the ability to get. But I'm talking about when you stagger them normally, as well, not only from the counter attack. It's completely inconsistent system that can create cheap deaths. Because of the artificially long health pool, where enemies should be dead already, and the cheap thing that you can stun lock the boss with, which is a problem for... Well, actually, it's not a problem from the player's combat system, because player combat system is 10 out of 10. But the fact that you can do this means that the parameters of the bosses have been done in a bad way, that allows doing that. That's what I'm saying in the game. That's what I'm saying about this game. It's the parameters that are fucked. So, yeah. Anyway, people... But this is a good comment. This is actually, I like this type of a comment. This is a comment where someone actually challenged my points and went with it. They are wrong, of course. Not wrong in a way but they understand things on a much higher level than the rest of the comment. Like this guy. This guy doesn't understand simple things, and that's fine. But this guy girl, I don't know. Sorry, this person. It's the English what I said. This person understands things much better, and they know what they are talking about, and they have tried to really in a good way explain things, and unfortunately they don't realize that it's an action RPG, not an action game. So if you go by that point alone, this game fails as an action RPG. If you want to play a game normally, if you want to not normally in a way, but that you don't stun lock the boss and that's not your focus, you are going to be in a very cheap situation most of the time against most of the bosses. If you play the game by stun locking the boss, then you are creating the cheap situation yourself, which is the byproduct of bad boss parameters and the very atrocious poise hyper armor system that the game has. That's it. But thanks for the comments, and thank you for your comment, by the way, Sargatas. You actually have some points. You're wrong about some things, which I mean, you're wrong. Even light armor, you can freely tank 4 or 5 of those. Maybe against some bosses you can. They they do a bunch of, but even if they do a bunch of light hits, they do a lot of them. In, for example, Princess Elena and her 15 stabs combo, right? They won't kill you in 2 shots, but they will in 4, and they are fast, and you can easily fail them. You can also block them, of course, because when muscle memory kicks in, you can block all of them. Is that a skill? No, it's muscle memory. But anyway, skill is countering it, but then again, you can't really counter when you're in that combo. You can't do anything. The only thing you can do, maybe flash cutter, pull it off in between when she does that. Because there's 3 to 4 hits, and then there's a little bit of a pause, and then she does again, which is when you can actually counter. But because the flash things like flash cutter, unlike Phantom Wave, have a startup animation, and that startup animation doesn't mean that you're going to counter instantly when in the starting frames. You won't. And that also creates a timing thing, which, as I said, it all becomes more of a muscle memory. And that's all. But thank you all for the comments. I won't be responding anymore. That's all I had to say about this. I'm done. I've really invested a lot of time debating, discussing, and all of that. And I just don't have it in me anymore. I feel like if I do a couple more comments, I'm gonna go down to the level of Get Good People and start using my and lose my composure, you know. And I don't want to do that. Because if I can be very objective about the games that I play, I want to be objective in the comment section as well. Maybe show people that you can go through even bad debates and discussions in a normal way, right? Sometimes, of course, I don't. Sometimes I will say some things that are going to insult someone. I don't care. Same as people are going in comment sections assaulting others, right? I just try to do it, well, not to that not to some high extent, or not at least, or at least I try to back up what I'm saying, right? There's a lot of empty comments here that disagree and all that, but there's a couple of really good ones, like this one. This is a good comment. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed and understand where I'm coming from with all of this, but I'm done responding. Enjoy the video if you want. If you don't, there's a dislike button. See ya.